Jim, did you pay that person?
We've worked out between us. We've all worked for major studios and big companies, and Saban and Lucasfilm and Disney. The list goes on. So, welcome to the panelists. We're really thrilled to have you here. And what I'd like to do is to kick off the panel tonight by asking some individual questions. Then we'll move into more of a group discussion. And I promise to leave some time at the end for questions and answers. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Paul Flett. I'm at United Talent Agency, and I've had the pleasure of working with all the other panelists over the last 12, 15 years that I've been here in the US. So I'm going to start with Brian.
Thank you.
Brian, as you know, is head of licensing at Saban. Brands include Paul Frank, Power Rangers. And I want to ask Brian.
Go Power Rangers.
Go. If you were a Power Ranger. Now, I was going to ask you, how are you really using digital media, social media, to talk to your audience these days? And how has it changed over the past few years? Thinking particularly about brands like Power Rangers.
So, hello, everybody. Power Rangers is an interesting brand in that we've been around for 21 years. We have over 800 episodes of the show. And one unique thing about Power Rangers, it's not only has multi geographies, but it's also multi-platform, also multi ethnicities, and with a legacy like that, clearly our traditional business of linear TV and DVD, clearly those are the cornerstones and still very, very important to our business. So in addition to those key media outlets, with a library of over 800 episodes, on demand becomes a really key part of the business, so that we can reach as many consumers as possible to access the content whenever they want. And what's interesting is we actually find that not only do we see people who are watching the latest and greatest show that is any given year, but we also find kids and often adults, kids who are actually watching the show from 2, 3, 4 years ago because they watch it on the various digital platforms. So that's from a kind of the home entertainment perspective. From the digital and social perspective, we really try to create content, different content for different platforms. So whereas our websites, for example, for Power Rangers, are the kind of traditional kids entertainment sites where you have news and games and content associated to the TV show. Then we have YouTube, which is really a much broader focus of content, where we have content for the superfan as well as kids and families. And then we have things like Facebook, which really targets much more of the superfan. Pinterest, we might be doing something where we teach parents and how to do Power Rangers birthday parties, for example. And then Instagram, where we show clips of the show. So it's really wide-reaching, and we actually probably we care less about the medium that we deliver, but more importantly, that we want to be on as many screens as possible to reaching as many fans as possible, because we have this multi-generational property.
That's great. And do you find a big difference between boys and girls in the way that they potentially behave or react?
Yeah, I mean, Power Rangers. Interestingly, we have. If you guys are familiar with Power Rangers, there's five main characters, 5 main Rangers. Three are male, two are female. But we're a boys action show, so we do actually very much target the boys side. But we interestingly have, especially from the digital side, we have a sort of a over-indexing of female fans. So we do have to reach out to the female fans as well. So it is interesting because I think from a digital perspective, we have a little more liberty to experiment to reaching both male and female, but also a wider variety and customize our message.
Good, thank you. Greg, can I ask you a question about planning and thinking about how you look at new IP and launching new properties? The studio obviously has a multi-year horizon. How is that whole process changing now with the rise of social and digital media, and how are things changing for you at the studio?
So I think when you look at, especially on the TV side, SVOD has become a huge outlet to deliver content. And what we learned from one of our recent shows, Breaking Bad, is that the first 2 seasons of the show, traditional television distribution on AMC, which is great, but it wasn't until the 3rd season where really Netflix kind of took off. And we found that there have been so many downloads of the show through that medium, especially throughout Europe, not just in the US, that when we announced the prequel show to Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, which launches in February, there's been such a surge of people who wanted to download the entire 5 seasons on Netflix that they do marathon weekends of just watching Breaking Bad. So for me, because I shirt sales, more collectible sales, more sales of Walter White figures at Toys R Us, which if you guys have heard, that's been a whole social dilemma for me the past 2 days. But that's an interesting, because that also causes social, I would say, viral dilemma for some of us here, in that you never know what one person can create that will affect, a whole area of business for us. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. I love the idea of Breaking Bad action figures at Toys R Us. And do you have the chemistry set to go with that movie?
Yes. Whatever we can sell them makes a buck. No, I'm kidding. We do have a social conscious,
yes.
And I think that I did. Yeah, it's already been tweeted. But no, I do think that we are very careful, and with places where products are sold, and you can see everything digitally now, that we are very careful. We actually had someone make a meth lab from Breaking Bad out of Lego, and people were like, "Oh, we should sell that." I said, "We're not going to sell that." But people will post stuff on their digital, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest, and you just have to be really careful on what you do and how you respond to those social messages.
That's an interesting point. Obviously with the speed of communication, similarly, your reaction times have to be really compressed, and you've got to be ready to react and adapt and respond to those things in a flash. Moving to Roz, I was going to ask you almost the same question, just thinking that your business is, obviously a different, thinking about kids and digital social media, 1.73 billion people on the planet are now using social media as a means of connecting and engaging and communicating. And just thinking about that and Fox and the properties that you have, how are you changing the way you're planning for launches and marketing, et cetera?
Well, going back to the dark ages, which is when I started in licensing, there was definitely not a consideration for that. Marketing plans, strategies, everything we did was a much more simplistic world. And what the social media world has caused us to do is be a lot smarter and thoughtful in how we plan out all of our promotions, our marketing, our strategies for licensing. We have to take everything into account. The great thing about Fox, and I think a lot of us have that opportunity, is we have a great broad array of properties. But the properties span from anything from Simpsons to something as sophisticated as Titanic. So we have to be very reasonable in how we look at things, and we look at each demographic segment. And the beauty about social media is we can really target that. And I think that is something that's been a really great eye-opener for me, hanging around here almost 30 years in terms of licensing. We were joking about this before the panel. We used to kind of collect money. It was kind of a fun thing to do. We licensed, and it wasn't really a thought process that was involved in it. It was just a fabulous, fun environment. It's still fun, but it's a lot more thinking involved and a lot more strategy. So when we look at a property such as The Simpsons, we have 75 million Facebook fans. But how do you reach them all properly? Do you use that as an avenue to sell your product and pitch it? Or do you treat them as real fans and you reward them with really cool stuff in terms of information? Yes, that's the right answer. And so we have to pick our plays, because obviously we're in a business to make a load of money, and we do, but we also have to be mindful of our audience, and we take all of that into consideration, whether it's a fan-based opportunity with Simpsons, or something like we work on Ice Age, which is a long-term franchise for us, the 5th one coming out, and we have to consider that from the completely different demographic segment. So it's very different. And then you factor that into a global play, because we are in a different life cycle, and I'm sure all of us can speak to that on all of our properties. They're either well-known in some, not well-known in the other. We just announced we're streaming for the first time in China next year, The Simpsons on Sohu, officially being in China. It's been unofficial for a while. So it's really cool. So there's a lot of things that we take into account. It's a global strategy, and it's the most spreadsheets I've ever had to look at to figure out how to plan these things out. So anyway, but that's how we look at it. It's just unbelievable, and it's fascinating, and it's challenging.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. The fact is that there's so many channels and means to reach consumers. What you're saying is that you have to, make much more careful decisions in planning and strategizing. But also, as we talked about earlier, be very quick to respond if things change. Jim, I'd like to move on to you, if I may. And could you talk to us about YouTube and the importance, who's watching, who's being influenced, and how are you converting people to customers from interest purely on YouTube?
Yeah, I was just laughing listening to YouTube, because hello, no planning, right? I mean, I don't know what my content is. So I'm like, I know what movie is coming out next week. But no, I mean, YouTube, obviously, our entire brand, our entire essence is based off of YouTube. I mean, we just crossed 100 million subscribers for Awesomeness TV, 1 billion video views a month now. So we'll have 12 to 15 billion video views this year. So the great thing about being in the YouTube environment is Google Analytics are fantastic, and you know everything about the viewership, demographics, location. Half of our views are outside of the United States, to your point on global, but we're only in American English. We're not, which means they're watching the content that we're creating for the quote US channel. And I think what we've been doing since I've been on board is trying to figure out how you translate this incredible digital equity into physical product and experiences. Because if you read the comments and you follow the shows that we create and the movies that we create, the fan base, we're really responding to the community and the fan base. They want the product. They're basically asking for the product. And that's a great high grade problem to be in, is to figure out, okay, now you're asking for the product. What specifically do you want? What would you want to buy? And we're in a position at Awesomeness of almost reverse engineering, where we can look and see what's happening in the community and then create content that answers to what they're asking for. So a lot of our shows that we have in development, either scripted series or movies or docudramas or reality series, really comes from the community. And so most of what we do at Awesomeness is troll data and read a lot of comments. I mean, and the thing that's amazing about being in this space is you put up an episode, you put up a new video, and you instantly have feedback. And how you choose to respond to that is really where the strategy piece comes into it. But it's changing all the time.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about how you're taking YouTube and some of the influential talent out to retail and converting that into product sales?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I think the first one we did that we've been getting a lot of press off of is the brand that we created for Kohl's, which launched 4 weeks ago now. It's called So Rad by ATV, S period, O period, R period, A period, D period. And what we did with that is we created the product first. So it's a juniors apparel collection. We went to a great manufacturer and got the product right first. But then at the same time, we created a series called Life So Rad that debuted the same weekend that the product went into Kohl's and Kohls.com. And the series is a 6-episode story arc that stars 2 of our biggest YouTube influencers. It happens to be Liam Marie Johnson and Amanda Steele in the first series. And what happened is the weekend that we launched, the product went up online, the product went in store, the series went up online, haul videos went up on YouTube. And basically it was like this coming together of all of this social media. And all of a sudden, the first weekend we had 11 million views on content for So Rad. And what happened for Kohl's is we actually helped them solve a problem because they came to us and said, we need to be relevant again with teens. We need to get teens back into our stores. And when you read the comments on all the things we did, I used to think that was my mom's store. Now I'm going to go. I can't wait to go in and try this stuff on. And then we started to see selfies of girls in the store, like holding up the product or taking pictures in the fitting room mirrors. And it drove basically new customers to Kohl's, or customers with their mom or their grandmother were already there, and now they decided it was cool to go with them. So, and we're also now in the business of licensing directly some of our biggest YouTube creators, where we are now their licensing agency, representing them with licensees and retailers. And so that's a relatively new development too. But they can move. We call them influencers for a reason, because they move the needle. They're definitely needle movers.
That was really interesting. Thank you. I'd like to open up the panel and invite anybody to jump in. And I want to talk about retailers. And we talked about how we're doing plans as licensors, bringing product to market, integrating digital media, social media. But then when the rubber hits the road, you're having a conversation with a retailer about promoting product, launching, driving traffic into the store, incentivizing sales and promoting the property. And that whole mix of tools that you traditionally would use, whether it be a Happy Meal or a sweepstakes, is now changing and moving and proliferating into lots of other channels and ways to connect with the consumers. So could you talk maybe about how you're working with the retailers to use social media and digital tools to convert people to product purchase, how that's changing? I'm also interested in whether, retailers are a little bit ahead of the studios and your companies, or whether they need help. And I suspect it's the latter, because we all, there's such a fast changing pace. But how are you coping with that? How are you retail business development people managing those kind of discussions?
For us in particular, I mean, when we go out to retail, we're finding them more and more very sophisticated with that. I'm actually very surprised sometimes when I go we don't walk into Walmart, Kmart, Target, Kohl's for that matter, without having that opportunity for us to connect on their online site somehow, to drive sales online or to drive them back into the stores using some kind of social media, whether it's something on one of our video games that we're encouraging somebody to get a power up or something like that, that if they purchase the product in store, that we're encouraging them to go online. We had a recent movie that just broke this last weekend called Book of Life. And we did an incredible, great program with a Hot Topic, which is a huge fan base there. We did a fabulous job, I think, and they did as well, with a great product line that's inspired by the Day of the Dead, which is what the movie is based on. And there was a social media component, an outreach to it. The word got out, the fans were there, and it really allowed us to drive product sales to a consumer base that really may not have been even aware of the movie. So it really was one of those perfect storms where we had this beautiful product driven to teens, tweens, and in a lot of cases, adult women, driving people to see the movie and also getting them into the stores to buy the product. So it was just one example, and they're more dialed in than most, that we don't walk in anywhere now and present at retail without having some kind of digital component to help drive their sales. So they are definitely more sophisticated than they've ever been before, but they expect us to deliver turnkey results to them and have all the answers.
So I have a comment on that also, because our first kind of strategy when we launch a property, whether it's TV or film, where there isn't a lot of retail interest, is that we'll create an online store. And so retailers will look at that and say, okay, how's that retail store doing? So if we have a show out that, you know, it's very difficult now to get that retail placement at especially the mass market, and we'll create the online store, and that will be our thermometer test as to how well we think it can do with consumers. And that's very different. It used to be you'd never do that. You know, go right away to Walmart, Target, Kmart, or Toys R Us, or Hot Topic is a great one also. And see how they would do, but now they're much more risk averse. They want some sort of history. They want a brand that's existent. So we create an online store because we feel that the true fan, they're going to do a search and they're going to find the product if they really want it. And it's hard to find it in the massive, you know, aisles at Walmart sometimes, but they know they can go online and find it. So digitally, and we'll go to the site, whether it's the Facebook page or whatever the network page, and we'll have a shop button there that will link to our online site.
That's very interesting. So what would be the optimum time between launching a new property and then setting up your e-commerce site to drive some sales?
Yeah, we actually try to do it concurrently, although people won't buy the product until they've actually seen the show. Although a lot of shows now, if you look, have huge ad campaigns that start 3 to 4 months. If you look at any of the networks now, when you look at what we did with Blacklist, which is one of our new show, what's the second season show, but they'll start advertising that show starting the last season, and just they'll pummel you through the summer until it launches. And so we'll have new creative, new artwork that's available, you know, on the online store.
So that's really interesting. So does that mean that you're able to go to traditional bricks and mortar retail and confidently launch a consumer products program with that e-commerce sales data maybe sooner than you would have done 10 years ago, when the conventional wisdom was to wait a couple of years after the show launches before you launch a consumer products program?
Still second season, so it's really tough to launch a full-scale CP program the first season of any show unless it's got some sort of a brand equity behind it. So we normally need those ratings and those numbers and the consumer engagement with the characters to be able to launch something at a brick and mortar retailer. Now we can do that almost immediately when you look at whether it's our sister company Generator, or there's Cafe Press, there's all these companies that can actually, people upload their own designs and then be able to get a t-shirt within, you know, days or weeks. So
Fascinating. Brian.
So we take a little bit different approach. We, for the most part, we drive our consumers to the retailers directly. A couple of examples recently are, a couple weeks ago, we did a promotion with Party City. Party City carries Power Rangers costumes, party goods, etc. And what we did is we did a 1 hour chat with the Red Ranger. So ironically, some people actually thought that we were talking to the actor, not the actual Red Ranger, but we took a photo of the Red Ranger in an office, 1 hour chat, and it essentially was very much targeted to kids and families. And the promotion itself, the promotion got 400,000 uniques, and which is, you know, pretty incredible numbers. And essentially what it did is it increased traffic to the Party City Facebook page. It drove people to go buy Power Rangers costumes on the Party City website. And then for us, what it did is it created engagement with the fan, but also it created a direct link to the Party City website. And so for us, one of the really key pieces we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize the number of clicks you go from any given promotion through any digital campaign, minimize those number of clicks to actually buy. So fortunately, we were able to do that. And this is obviously it wasn't a massive campaign, but it was still got some good numbers, and we were quite happy with the results.
I was going to ask you, Jim, if you could talk about maybe celebrity licensing and how that whole landscape is changing with the rise of YouTube and obviously a younger demographic being hip to what's happening and being in the know and following people and immediately making celebrities from people who are relatively unknown. Recently, the whole dynamic of celebrities is changing. Could you talk a little bit about how you're harnessing that and potentially keeping it authentic and converting people from fans to...
Authentic is a good word. Yeah, I think most of you have probably seen, the Adweek rankings, like the Power rankings, things like that, where like now YouTube creators, YouTube personalities have stronger influence scores than a lot of, quote, traditional Hollywood celebrities. And that really created kind of buzz when that was in Adweek a couple of months ago. But I've seen, one of the first things I attended when I took this job was VidCon in Anaheim. If you guys have heard about it, it's basically Comic-Con for YouTubers. And I was completely not prepared for what I was going to. They just told me to come and they'd have a pass for me. And I worked for Disney for a long time, so I thought I knew Anaheim and how to navigate and stuff. And I got down there and I couldn't find parking. And I thought, oh my God, there must be something going on at the park. Like, they must be having, I don't know, Mickey and Minnie must be in a new parade or something. But so I get to Anaheim Convention Center and I realize that 20,000 kids are at the Anaheim Convention Center to meet their favorite YouTube stars and have paid anywhere between $50 to $150, depending on what level pass they bought, to attend this 3-day conference to basically stand in stalls inside the Anaheim Convention Center to meet, and take a selfie with their favorite YouTube personality. And the energy and the power that you saw with these creators, as we call them, you just saw, like you had the crying girls and the screaming girls and it was like boy band all over again, right? And the celebrities and the personalities that we work with, we couldn't go anywhere with them in Anaheim. We'd have to put them in like hats and sunglasses and meet them, in a conference room. And I thought, my God, this is just incredible. And it reminded me so much of our days at Disney when we had Miley and Hannah Montana and the Jonas Brothers and looking at Kathy and, the Justin Bieber craze and everything. And what I realized quickly was that this is a new wave of celebrity, So it used to be celebrities were, and you guys will know, because we've all been in this business a long time, they were movie stars, right? It was the movie stars were the influencers. Like if you think of Elizabeth Taylor Diamond, remember when she came out with her perfume, right? Then TV stars started to get into the act, and let's face it, Jaclyn Smith was a visionary, right? And what she did with Kmart. And then it kind of moved into reality stars, Jessica Simpson, Lauren Conrad, of course, the Kardashians. I think now we're like on the wave where they're coming from YouTube, and that these young men and young women who are creating these incredible fan bases and these incredible subscriber bases. And the important thing I want to say is when you work with them, it's not just their footprint on YouTube. It's Instagram, it's Pinterest, it's Twitter, it's still Facebook, although that's becoming less important with our demographic. It's Snapchat, it's Vine. And when you look at their collective reach, these people have the ability to mobilize millions of fans across all of those platforms. And what's happening is you've got people, some people have been YouTubing now for 6 and 7 years, the original pioneers. And authenticity, which Paul mentioned, is really, really big to them. And they are so clear on who their fan is and who their brand is. And they're very selective about who they'll do endorsements for, who they'll do collaborations with. And I've had YouTubers that we represent pass on 6-figure endorsement deals because they say, I would never use that brand and my fans would know that. The other thing I love about them, because they come from the community and live by the community, if you ever do a meetup with them, so any of you that are out there that want our team for a meetup, like I had, one of our biggest is a woman named Ingrid Nielsen, Miss Glamorazzi. She had a 2-hour meetup planned at Sephora on 3rd Street Promenade here in Santa Monica. She ended up being there 5 hours because the line was so long. And it wasn't like she was asking for money or, I've got to leave, I've got somewhere else to be. Like, she realized that that's what makes her real. And she was not going to leave until that last woman in line got a signature or a selfie. And so I've just found them really refreshing working with them. And we're working with people. We have people signed in our consumer products that are 14 up to like 25. And I literally, Kathy's going to laugh when I say this. I literally called my 14-year-old niece and I'm like, you're a freaking slacker. Like I just met Makeup by Mandy, and she's got it going on. She knows what her brand is. She knows what brand she wants to deal with. And all you're doing is playing volleyball. Like, come on. Like, so get a camera. But it's really amazing to me that they understand the power of the medium. They understand the power of influence, and they take it really, really seriously.
Yeah, I think to that point as well, Jim, there's been a tremendous shift in society in the way that we look at celebrities. Think, 20, 30 years ago, how people would put favorite celebrities up on a pedestal. They'd be very aspirational, almost secretive, elusive, and you would see them on the genuine, ongoing relationship with those fans. And I think it's true to say that the VidCon experiences, fans really think of these people as a real friendship or a real relationship. And in turn, that relationship, if it's correctly managed, can be incredibly powerful in influencing consumer behavior.
I think the other key with these creators, and we talk about our creators are consumers and the consumers creators. It's this whole UGC generation. I think the other thing that makes it, they look at those creators and they think I could be that person, much more so than I could be Beyonce or I could be Katy Perry, right? Like, because they know that's kind of 1 in a million. They really do believe they have a one-on-one relationship, and they also believe that I could be that person as well. I think it's a really unique phenomenon.
Yeah, it's just changing so fast. I just wanted to take a pause here for a second and open up the floor. If anybody has any questions, we can maybe take some questions to the panel in the last few minutes.
Oh, Miss Glamorazzi. Miss Glamorazzi. Ingrid Nielsen, yeah.
Yes, gentlemen over.
User-generated content. So we're all talking about that. Greg, we all talked about it, is where, my whole world is user-generated. We create 28 pieces of content a week to put up on Awesomeness TV, but we manage a network of 88,000 channels. So obviously we have 4 channels that we manage directly. That means there's whatever 88,000 minus 4 is. There's a lot of other channels that are basically user-generated content, where it's people creating short films, testimonials, talking to the camera in their bedroom. That's user-generated, yeah.
Any questions? Lady in blonde hair.
The demographics you've been speaking about, sort of like they're teenagers mainly. What happens? Are there any other demographics?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, for YouTube overall, I think there's a kind of a misperception that it's only teenagers. I would say for Awesomeness TV, our demographic is 12 to 24. So teens and what we would call young millennials in the marketing world. So definitely college age and people who are first out of college. I think the challenge, and to one question that Paul asked earlier, I think where we're still educating the retailers a little bit is my stump speech to retailers now has been, if they're consuming their media through mobile and through YouTube and through Netflix now, what makes you think when she turns 25 and gets married that she's going to go back to traditional platform TV? And so it's better to start playing with them now and understanding this medium and how to communicate to them in this medium. Because what's happening is the original YouTubers, like people like Michelle Phan, who's really famous, she's probably the first one, she's been on 7 years. Well, what happens is they change and grow and they get married and they're starting to have babies. They don't stop YouTubing. They don't stop doing testimonial videos. They don't stop creating content. And now what's happening, I think one area that we're probably most excited about Awesomeness is there's this entire millennial mom online community where there's a ton of content for millennial moms, both educational content, but also just community content of I'm a first-time mom and I want to share my story with you. And that's because she was a YouTuber when she was 18. Now she's 25 and married with her first child. She's still a YouTuber. She's still, and not just a YouTuber, a social media connoisseur, I guess is the best way to say it.
Fascinating. Question over here.
I don't want specific names of clients, but in general, what type of companies or what type of entrepreneurs become your clients? Do you just deal with movies or already established names and platforms, or do you accept entrepreneurs or rising companies as clients? For licensing.
Well, we have a portfolio of brands. We tend to work with brands that have a built-in audience, to be honest with you. It's how we generate the awareness and grow. But it's interesting, looking at new concepts, we look at everybody. And in fact, we've been tasked with, of course, look through the traditional mediums that you normally would look for, but look for the YouTubers, look for the small designer that you might. So, you know, it's more about how do you get the small entrepreneur who's starting to break out from the rest, and it's not easy. But we do look a little bit at that, but I think a bulk of our portfolio tends to be the more up and well-known or up-and-coming brands.
Question over here.
Awesomeness, what's your gender balance? 70-30?
Yeah, I'd say it's like 70 female, 30 male. I mean, our channels are almost 50-50, ironically, but obviously the male channels, it's a lot of female viewership on the male channels.
This lady over here. Okay, I'll come back to you. Any other questions over here? I think somebody else had their hand up over here. You remembered? Okay, good.
What I'm curious about is, you put out a product, how do they know that? How do you get them? Like, say, for example, Kohl's, remind me that. Okay, you put it out, somebody writes a book, how do you get them to
Well, I can answer that because a lot of times now it is the social media. So we will promote, because you're right, you can create a t-shirt at Hot Topic. How is a consumer going to know to walk into that retail location and actually buy that product? And social actually really helps with that, because
social media, how do they find you on social media? How do they know to go to you on social media? No, not you. I mean, if they know that it comes from Fox or Sony or Awesomeness or whatever, they may. But I'm saying the person out here, how would they be able to get to that person using social
I think the overall answer is it's part of the marketing mix, and that mixes, traditional promotional tool, paid advertising, public relations, in-store appearances, promotions. This is just a whole new layer of brand new tools that you're using to connect and reach with your audience. And the great thing is it's more immediate and often cheaper than those traditional tools. And so that's the beauty of it.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying. How does somebody come to you? You're saying that you go to promote it and that will open up the doors to them, to knowing them, and then you could go online and they'll find you.
You do a traditional marketing review and target the relevant consumers and the right age group, and then spend time and resources against that to do that. So yes.
So when you're doing do you actually encourage or do you hire bloggers to promote inside their blog what we've seen on the content? I'm not trying to.
Well, we wouldn't do that. That may be something that Awesomeness might do, but we.
Well, I'm not asking honest questions.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be rude.
No.
So Sony doesn't, but Awesomeness may.
Yeah, we
You have bloggers.
we have, in our network, we have bloggers, we have YouTube haulers and stuff, and we have brands that come to us and ask us who in the community are influencers for that particular brand or that particular movie or a new book that's coming out. And we go through the network and try and find, it's the word that Paul used, authentic. In a network of 88,000 channels, there's bound to be somebody that loves that particular author or somebody that loves, Book of Life. Yeah. And then you hook them up. Yeah.
Because we have a brand, Simpsons, and like Kiara, who's the blonde salad, if any of you know her, she's a big blogger out there. And she posted up, and she had one of the shirts on that happened to be a Simpsons shirt. We reached out and got her as much Simpsons as we could, and she started blogging about it. She became our friend. We're not paying her, but we do ensure that she's a fan that's satiated, and she was already a fan to start with. So authentic is there.
Yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just, sorry, Brian, wrap up. We're out of time on this first session of the two-part evening roundtable. Just to remind you that there is a TV session after this. Please help me to say thank you very much to our panelists.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to be with you here this evening, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everyone.